And it's funny, when you ask that question of like, hey, what is high performance to you? What does that look like to you? It's so funny because I think the bold answer of what everyone always thinks is like, oh, they think of the guy like the LeBron James, the person that's like always just knocking on the door, like the best ever in their industry, whatever their sport, whatever that case may be. And sure, that is a level of high performance. Now, when I think about high performance, yes, winning is great, but I also come back to one simple thing, and that one simple thing is probably consistency, right? Someone that just does over time, they like have this level of just like they find a way, right? There's someone that always shows up. There's someone that always hits the number. There's someone where you can, you have faith where it's like, hey, if that person's going to run with a new project, a new idea, like I just know they're going to come through. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I just know they're going to figure it out.
Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I have Chad Aleo here that's going to join us in a minute. But before we do that, I want to let you know that there is a free training down below in show notes about how to grow your audience online. That's going to be really helpful for you in the day-to-day where influencer marketing is the key thing. Nobody's buying billboards anymore. It's all about growing online. So if you want to know how to do that, check that link down below. Chad, super pumped that you're here. Before we jump into your story and allowing everybody to kind of know your story, tell us like, what is high performance? What does that look like? What does that mean to you? How do you kind of apply that to your high achieving mindset and personality?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Nathan, dude. Super pumped. I mean, definitely a topic that I'm super passionate about. And I mean, when you asked me to be on this podcast, it was a no-brainer, right? And it's funny, when you ask that question of like, hey, what is high performance to you? What does that look like to you? It's so funny because I think the bold answer of what everyone always thinks is like, oh, they think of the guy like the LeBron James, the person that's like always just knocking on the door, like the best ever in their industry, whatever their sport, whatever that case may be. And sure, that is a level of high performance. Now, when I think about high performance, yes, winning is great, but I also come back to one simple thing, and that one simple thing is probably consistency, right? Someone that just does over time, they like have this level of just like they find a way, right? There's someone that always shows up. There's someone that always hits the number. There's someone where you can, you have faith where it's like, hey, if that person's going to run with a new project, a new idea, like I just know they're going to come through. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I just know they're going to figure it out. And I don't have to think about that, right? So that's what high performance is to me, because I think it's easy for anyone to have a flash in the pan of success, call themselves a high performer, but consistency, I think that is the level of what high performance is directly to me.
Absolutely. And now people know you for being a salesperson. Like you started out really interesting. I want to get to that and hear your origin story. But people know you. You have a book. You have a high ticket sales book, and then you also have a training to help people to learn these skills. Why do sales? Why write a book on it? Why have a training on it? Like, why is that important? And tell us a little bit more about like what people know you for.
Yeah. So biggest thing that people probably know me for, I mean, definitely sales, right? I mean, I've been a salesperson, and I'm not afraid to say it since I was 19 years old. I mean, shoot, I can even say I was a salesperson since I was 12 years old, right? Yeah. Even younger. I mean, I've been selling my mom on ideas all my life, right? But man, I mean, sales to me has been I think I found a lot of confidence in myself. Okay. And I think from a sales standpoint, it's changed my life from a income perspective. It's changed my life from a belief in myself in other areas. Right. But it's also allowed me to strengthen my relationship with God. It's allowed me to improve my faith. Right. And I think it also opened me up into this self-help general of a world. Right. And, but sales at the end of the day that's the thing I've been known for. And then of course I started a business on it, and I start teaching people how to do it after years of selling a product. And, from a standpoint of why sales, why do you want to teach it? I think the biggest reason, I just want to teach people how to sell the right way, because at the end of the day, I think sales just has a sleazy rap, and it doesn't have to be that way. I don't think you have to tell people just what they want to hear to close the deal. And so that's the quick version of why I love sales, right? And why I teach it.
But tell us at the very beginning, you said you were 12 years old. What did that look like? You knew you were a little bit different because you're not normal with doing all of this. Like, tell us a
Yeah.
little bit of like when you realized that, what was the up and coming beginning of Chad growing into the success you are now?
Oh man. Well, we'll get into that. I don't know if I 12 years old, I like was aware that I was a salesperson, but growing up, my nickname, I was called Chatterbox. Okay. Because I talk so much, right? And we all know those kids that like, man, I mean, people, my uncles would try to give me $1 just to shut up, right? Whatever. And it'd be a big joke in the family, but it's interesting when I actually like look back, obviously I wasn't aware at the time, but everyone's in sales, whether you have a sales job or not, or whether you run a business, you don't realize it, but you're selling your spouse on why they should marry you when you're proposing, or into that, or as you're courting them to get to that moment, right? As a kid, you're selling your parents on like maybe the fact that your sister is the one that broke the thing and it wasn't you. Or maybe it's like, hey mom, please let me go to my friend's house. Even though I didn't do my homework, you should just still let me do it. And so, at some point I realized this element where, maybe I had some element of, negotiating power. But again, when you're growing up, you don't realize it until you look back and you say, I remember, like going to my dad first about something that I knew my mom was going to say no to. And I'd be like, hey, dad, can I go do this thing? Get dad to say yes. Then go to mom and be like, hey, mom, dad said I could do this, and like, and that's a basic sales technique. I had no idea that I was doing it. It's like, hey, I'm using somebody else's approval to help you, of course, name dropping. Dad said it was okay if I do this, yada, yada, yada. And, just to try to like, influence mom saying yes to doing stuff. But, yeah, it's just always interesting when you look back. And then, of course, wanting to play a sport, yada, yada, yada. Now, I think this is a question you probably want to get to is like, where did sales start? And so for me, it was really getting into, door-to-door sales. That's like when I actually got a real sales job and I learned about the stuff that I'm explaining, that awareness that I have now, right?
So tell us about that. I mean, I think you told me before you were at college and you're like, I got to make some money. That was kind of the realization. And then you did door-to-door, like selling like encyclopedias, or what kind of books did you end up selling? That's an interesting approach to it.
Yeah. So I'm in college. I'm sitting in my business class. Okay. I attended Central Michigan University. So anyone's listening from Michigan, I love Michigan. It's where I still live. And I attended Central Michigan University and I'm sitting in business class. And then all of a sudden, like class is about to start like 5 minutes before. And then somebody comes to the front of the room and they're saying like, hey, we're looking to, hire interns for our summer internship. We got a form we're sending out. If you guys want to fill that out, we'll call you for an interview. So I fill out this form, whatever. Eventually get a phone call and they're like, hey, this interview. And obviously it was very vague, right? And I don't think anyone's ever like, hey, it's a door-to-door sales internship, right? No one's going to be excited to go to that interview. And they say Southwestern is the name of the company. We'd love to interview you and see if you'd be a potential fit. And so I'm like, all right, cool. I'll go to this interview. And I meet with this guy named Maurice. And of course he recruits me over a course of like probably a couple of weeks to come do this door-to-door sales thing. Okay. Where I sell educational kids books, in a state that I've never been in my life. I get a host family. I'm 100% commission. And before I go to that location, I go to Nashville first for an entire week of sales school where we're at the headquarters of this company. There's hotels there. And like literally it's like sales boot camp. I mean, we have sales scripts. We're running around. We're going to like motivational seminars and stuff at specific times of the day. And we're learning about all the products. Like literally it is almost like Navy SEALs for like door-to-door salespeople. And I did that for an entire week straight. And then like after that week, we go to our location and I did this and end up doing this for 3 summers. And so, we, first summer I was in Virginia, second summer I was in Minnesota. And then the third summer I was in Texas. And again, I mean, I remember my first summer, we had to knock on doors to find our host family. Like how crazy is that? Right. I mean, literally going door to door, like my first day and my manager, Maurice, is like, yeah, we're going to go knock for a host family. And hey, we're a bunch of college kids living here for the summer. We're looking for a host family. We work 80 hours a week. We're never going to be around. And like, that was like the first time I ever knocked on someone's door. And they always made a joke. If you can ask someone where, if you can live at their house, then you can definitely, sell a product to somebody. Right. And so we had to find a place to live, whatever. But it was a very organized thing. And every Sunday, like the entire org that was in that state, they'd all meet up on Sundays, but we worked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I would knock on my first door at 8 a.m. and I would go until 9 p.m. Okay. And so it was like, I mean, which we can get more into the specifics of that, but I did that for 3 summers and I ended up having a lot of success. And I have a lot of, stories of overcoming in moments where a lot of you guys listen to this call where like you kind of figure out, am I a high performer? Am I not? Right. And so there's that moment where it's like, I can still remember it today. Like when I wanted to quit, right. It was really hard and I pushed through. And so, but yeah, that's where I got my start. Yeah.
What are the qualities that you find of a high performance salesperson? Because a lot of people have tried it. They fail at it. They don't have the resolve of getting rejected. Like that's not built into us to be rejected.
No,
so it's a hard thing. How do people deal with that? And how do you coach people through being aware of saying, hey, this is not going to be easy, but it's going to be worth it?
Yeah. Yeah. Biggest thing, number one, is if you're trying to get in sales for the first time, I think, or if you're trying to get to another level, I think this is one thing. You got to get rid of your cool card. Okay. And what I mean by that is, you know, we all view ourselves in this specific way. And so that's why I think rejection can be so tough, because we take stuff so personal, right? When someone doesn't buy from us, especially when we're new. Okay. And I'm sure you can probably remember, I know you've been in sales for a while, Nathan, but it's like really early on, you think it's because of you. You're like, I'm not good at this. I suck at this. This product sucks. You know, and it's like, but it ultimately comes back to, I must not be as good as that guy, but it's just simply because you're new, right? And you're just taking stuff too personal. And the crazy part about sales, if you're listening, is like, you lose more than you win all the time. I don't care which guru you're following. If they're saying, I close 70%, that's just to get you to click on something. Okay. I just don't believe that. Unless you're taking renewal calls, whatever, but that's a whole nother conversation. But sales, you just lose more than you win based on the numbers. But if you're someone that's closing 20, 30%, you are making killer money in any industry. And a lot of people can't do that. So it comes down to two things, but you know, obviously, you know, getting rid of your cool card, but that leads into two things I talk about in my book, which is you got to focus on things, two things. And the two things that you can control is like, you got to be able to control your attitude, because you're going to have the roller coaster, the waves. People are going to buy, some aren't going to buy, you know, some are going to be rude to you, some aren't not, especially in door to door. Right. And so it's like, how do I keep that, not get too high, not get too low, no matter what happens to me, become like unfazable. So you got to control your attitude. And then sales is 100% results driven. You got to control your effort. Okay. So if you can control your attitude, if you can control your effort, like you can have a lot of success in sales. Now, effort could mean different things. It could mean memorizing my scripts. It could be knowing how to answer objections. It could be actually knocking on the doors if you're someone that cold calls, or making the phone calls and making the dials, right? It could be the person that's just, you know, second, third closing. It's like, what is that thing that shows that you're going above and beyond? Okay. And so it always dwindles down to those things. How do I control my attitude? How do I control my effort? And the biggest thing when it comes to attitude, you just got to get rid of your cool card. You're not as cool as you think you are. You know, you don't need to take your life so seriously, you know, whatever, all these different things, and just have a lot more fun. Right. So that encompasses a lot of like my foundations of what helped me get to where I wanted to be at the end of the day.
What are some characteristics that you've seen in people that have really succeeded in this, that they really had to take on and adopt, or what did they had to get rid of to actually be able to be successful?
In specifically sales in general, or like the industry of high ticket sales?
Just in general.
Yeah. Two characteristics that people had too. I think tenacity, and I think there's that element of persistence. I think that's what I'm looking for. You got to be persistent. Like, man, oh man, I get said no to way more than I get said yes to. People think that like when I get on the phone, like I'm just going to close every person I talk to because I'm like this magician. And no, but I've had enough reps where I can close. I feel like I can close anybody if I have the call the right way. But sometimes it doesn't happen, right? And that's okay, right? But I keep going. And I think when you're new, you got to have that persistence. That's the reason why they say some of the most, you know, successful millionaires, Mark Cuban, they all started as salespeople, and they figured out how to be good at sales. Then they go start a business, which, by the way, for the record, running a business is way harder than a sales job, way harder. And it's like you build this like impenetrable mindset in sales, and then you like have this unwavering belief in yourself in business, right? Like where you just won't give up, right? And Alex Hormozy talks about this a ton. Like the guy that is successful is a guy that just never stops, right? And sometimes that's like literally what it is, because you can figure anything out. So, but persistence is a huge one. Again, like I said, you just can't give up. Okay. I was coaching one of my sales reps about that today. And then the second one, you know, for someone that wants to be successful in sales, you know, I think you just have to never be satisfied, right? And in the aspect of like always wanting to sharpen the saw, because even if you're really good at sales, you should still believe that you can always learn something. I follow so many salespeople, and I'm always picking up something from someone. Someone said something a little bit different. Someone motivated me in a different way. Right. I don't believe I'm the end all be all. I don't believe I'm the only person that's, the god to sales. It's like, dude, there's so much to learn. And I think often that's when I see top performers lose when they do figure out sales, is when they get to a place of like complacency and they just don't think they need training.
How obsessive do you have to be, especially at the very beginning? Because I'm just thinking for an entrepreneur, thinking for a business owner.
Sure.
I definitely believe that sales is the number one skill that you need to have at the very beginning and just constantly, like you're saying, because you need to convince your wife, you need to convince your kids to eat broccoli, you need to convince yourself to get a job, you got to convince yourself and other people to continue on to be perseverance with what you're doing. But it's like learning that is not easy.
Yeah.
Now, being cut from a different cloth, being obsessive about something,
sure,
is not normal.
Yeah.
I think people are obsessed or maybe around like football or other things, but to a level of not helping them grow or be a better person themselves.
Yeah.
What did you have to do? You realize you're a little bit different. Where was this line in the sand that you're like, all right, I got to get serious about making this happen? Writing a book is not easy. For instance, right? Creating a program, running a business. Like, where does this obsession come from for never stopping, never giving up, just relentless, hitting your head against the wall to be that person that you should be? Where does that come from?
Well, I think there's always this one quote that I always go back to, which is, nothing's going to change unless you do, right? If you've always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always gotten. And I think for a lot of people, it's like that you're either going to learn that in your 20s or your 30s, or you're going to learn it when you're 75 years old. Okay. And you're going to wish your life back, and I could have, if I would have went after that business. Like, I guarantee anyone listening to this podcast, you've either wanted to start a business, you either wanted to quit that career and get a sales job because maybe listen to Nathan's podcast. You're like, I need to get a sales role because I have bigger goals and dreams. Well, the crazy part is that 1 week, of procrastination turns into a month, turns into a year, turns into 5 years, 10 years, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, where did life go? And so there's this part where, I remember I played sports in high school, and I'll never forget this, and I always think about it all the time, but we're in the district championship game, which was a big deal for my small town. Like, last time they won districts was like 20 years ago. And I remember the pregame speech, and my coach had on the whiteboard, it said INN and then W, INNW. So it stood, and he asked anyone like, hey, what does this mean? And it means if not now, when, right? And I think that encompasses so many different areas of our life, because it's like, if you're not going to do it now, when are you going to? And I think too many people are waiting for these perfect moments, right?
Yeah.
And so, I think there's just a moment where you just kind of have to like check yourself a little bit. It's like, if it is to be, it's up to me. It's not up to anybody else, right? And I need to take the action. I need to be the person that's going to go do something different. And I got to realize that, like, hey, anything you do for the first time is going to be hard. It's going to feel very uncomfortable because you've never done it before, right? You've never done it. Of course it's going to be hard, right? And so, but you got to get to this place where it's like, hey, if it is to be, it's up to me. And I think a lot of people don't hold themselves accountable enough. Okay. So if I was going back to like the moment for me, that's like what I told myself, right? Like, even when I wanted to quit door-to-door sales, like I was within the first 3 weeks. Okay. I'm knocking on doors 80 hours a week, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. And it was like, it took me all day, and then somebody finally bought something for me, but then I went 3 days without a sale. Okay. At first, that was like the worst thing that could have ever happened to me, because I was like, oh man, this is going to be an easy summer. I made 2 sales on the first day. Holy smokes. And then the next 3 days, nobody buys. And so it's like going into a Saturday, like my heart sunk. I'm like, what did I do? Is anyone ever going to buy from me again? Was that just a fluke? Right. And there's this like moment where you got to like kind of ask yourself, well, there's been people that have done this before me, and I can't just call my manager and have him come sell for me. Like, if this is going to work, it's up to me. I think you have to like hold yourself accountable. Like that at the end of the day is going to be the thing that is going to make or break anything that you do. And you can't blame the course, the program that you bought. Man, I love people that do that. They want a refund because they didn't do anything. And it's just like, come on. Like, and then when you have a really honest conversation with them, they will admit that I didn't do anything. It's like, okay, well, don't leave a bad review. Don't do these things. Like, you got to have that honest conversation with yourself. And I've had a conversation with somebody like that and that signed up for my program. And guess what? After that conversation, they didn't go belly up. They said, you know what, you're right. I'm going to go like actually do this and stop whining about it. They go get a job and now they're making 10 grand a month. Yeah. Right. And it's like, you got to make that decision for yourself. Right. So, but anyways,
I was the same place. Like sometimes there's these line in the sand moments that are sometimes desperate. And I think if you can't create urgency for yourself, there's going to be urgency that happens to you that then you have to get really serious about. So for sure. I remember I got stuck in a business I first started and it was a lot. And I had to figure it out. It was like 60K in the hole. My wife came to me and she's like, hey, if you can't figure this out, because she's pregnant, I'm the sole breadwinner. And I'm like, you got to figure this out. And it was a light bulb moment. Like nobody's going to come and save me. I got to figure this out. Mm-hmm. And when that happened, I realized I grew because I'm taking full ownership and I had to go figure it out. And that was great because it was hard. Looking back, I remember it was one of the hardest times of my life, but it was also the best growing period in my life because you had to actually figure this out and work really hard overtime. Like you're saying, 12-hour, 15-hour days, just nonstop growing. And I think that is so good. And having that obsessiveness around your goals of growth is going to be the key for that. And so hitting 10K a month now is like looking past, it was a great mile marker, but it's like, it's easier now because you've been to that stuff. And so the threshold of pain allows you to be able to push for that growth. Like, tell us that time when you went from book sales to other areas of your career in sales, and now you wrote some books on it. What have you gone and did with growing in that direction?
Yeah, well, oh man, I just when I go back to door to door, I think it's the hardest thing I ever did. And what I love is like whenever I interviewed for any sales job, it was like every interview person's like, "What? You went door to door 80 hours a week and you made money?" Because like everybody thinks it's like the scam guy selling magazines or vacuums or whatever. And then they're like, "You sold encyclopedias door to door." I'm like, yeah, it's the oldest, internship, 100,000, whatever. People have done it. And, but I built so much resilience in that time period. And what's crazy is I wasn't selling the sexiest product on the market. I was literally going and knocking on doors and I'd be like, hey, do you have kids in school? Oh, you do? Great. They need help with homework. Oh, do you ever struggle helping them because math is taught totally different than how you were taught in school? Oh yeah, it sucks. We're fighting at the dinner table. Well, I got something that you might be interested in, blah, 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 whatever. You sit down with them, they buy stuff. And it's funny because like I was literally knocking on doors, Nathan, and selling something. People had no idea that they were going to buy until I showed up. Right. So that's a totally different skill set.
Yeah.
But what I'll tell you is that like every sales job after that felt very easy because I learned a lot of persistence. And I'll tell you, the rejection's a lot harder in door-to-door sales. You get the person that's like, get the hell off my property. You get the person that's like, I'm going to call the cops on you, which I've had that happen. We called those blue light specials, right? I had a cop called on me and then I sold the cop my products. Like that was probably one of my favorite stories. And it was just like, thanks for calling the cops on me, right? Because someone didn't think I had a permit to sell, like whatever. But it's like, I learned so much and then that transitioned to every sales job. And like when you talk about like layers of, leveling up and skill set, it's like I got past that like, the hardest part for anyone in sales is just like getting to a point where you just like realize like you actually are way in more control than you think you are because you like start to know your product. And then it just turned into like, oh man, I think I could actually sell anything. If somebody teaches me about the product, I could literally sell anything. And then it turns into this belief and then you do it again at another company. And so then I went and started my own insurance agency, did that for 5 years, had a lot of success, sold that business. And then I ventured into the online remote high ticket sales industry. And I think it was even before it was called remote high ticket sales. It was just like online course sales, whatever. And I crushed it at that too. Right. But it's interesting because like I said, it was like the hard part about sales I like learned at such a young age versus someone that's trying to get through that stuff right now. Right. And I'm always preaching to people that are in my community, even some people on my sales team that are new. It's like right now is the hardest part of this whole career because you're going to make a sale and then you're going to go 2-3 days without making a sale and you're going to feel like the world's falling. Like I'm sure you remember, Nathan, Like rejection is so crazy. Like it gets you to a place where like you're questioning like, is anyone ever going to buy anything from me ever again? Right. And but when you get past that, like I'm telling you, I mean, like it just layers, right? And so yeah, it's just affected me in every single way, right? It's just been the mindset piece. Sales is very much like golf. Great golfers, yeah, they have a great swing, but like up here, dude, it's like they're so unfazable. And I just think of great salespeople are the same way, right?
What are some of the habits that you've had to adopt in your life that helped you be able to be at top performance, or even things that you had to cut out?
Yeah, going to bed early. I think that is gosh, like people don't talk about that enough, right? I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something along the lines of, oh man, it's like, you know, anyways, I'm not going to try to, I'll just butcher it. But anyways, like going to bed early is an absolute game changer. Just like the one thing that will literally separate you from 90% of the pack. I'm not even joking. Everybody sits on their phone. They're already addicted to their phones. Majority of people, we all know this, right? You go into any place, everyone's like glued, right? But what's crazy is like I go to bed between, you know, around like 9, between 10 at the absolute latest. But like I'm getting a great amount of sleep and I'm not waking up the next day dragging. Okay. I know a lot of people, and there's probably people on this podcast that are like, shoot, I go to bed at 11. I go to bed at midnight every night. It's like, then you're waking up at 8 o'clock. You're already like losing, you know what I mean? And so if there's one thing that I can just stress, like go to bed, get yourself rested, because you'll just show up 20 times better. We all do. It doesn't matter what you do in life, sales, leadership, you know, whatever your job is, like you're just in a way better, you're just in a way better state. But then the second thing is I would just say fitness. I think, you know, there's a lot more that people talk about this in nowadays. And I think it's just, if you're not doing fitness and you're complaining about how your body feels, and if you're someone where, you know, you just, I don't know, you're just negative all the time, like, just like the natural endorphins that you release and stress relief that you'll just get from just like getting your body moving, you feel better. It is a natural depressant. Okay. So you don't need to take a pill, right? But those two things, like you will become a totally different person if you get more sleep and if you start working out 3 times a week. But if you can do it daily, even a 20-minute walk, if you're thinking like, Chad, I can't be like a trainer. Dude.
Yeah.
Those are like the little things. And then you can stack, right? And I call this stuff little victories, where it's like 30 minutes of reading in the morning, you know, something that's like getting positive thoughts flowing before you start your day. Because you're going to get hit with a wave of negativity, you know, no matter if you're running a business, if you're in sales. So I do have one book that I recommend, though, for anyone that wants to start sales. It would be The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. Have you read that one?
I haven't, no, but I've heard the title.
Oh, man, that book. I should show it to you guys real quick. Let me grab it. This book is for anyone.
This is not his book, by the way. But
this is not mine. This one's not mine. This is Og Mandino. This is a classic. It's called The Greatest Salesman in the World. Amazing book. It's a parable. And it's about a guy that gets in sales for the first time. Amazing book. Like this was the book that I read in my very first sales job. This is what they gave us when I went door to door. And everybody had to read this. Like this is like what they told us to read every morning. So great book.
So it's interesting that you're talking about this book. You tell us about your book a little bit. You talk about the high performance. Is it an educational book, like teaching people how to do this, or how does what does your book go over?
Yeah. So my book's back here. I'll just grab it real quick. It's called The Book on High Ticket Sales. Okay. And so essentially it's the ultimate guide to making millions through remote selling. Okay. And essentially in my book, okay, I break down, I mean, not only the industry, but I teach the frameworks of how you conduct a call. Now, it is a self-help book. This is not, but it's very to the point. Like I wanted to teach people that are in any way, shape, or form. If you're selling a course, a coaching program, if you're selling anything in regards to how to make a sale within the hour that you're chatting with someone, this book is going to break down like how to go about that the right way. And so in sales, there's elements of rapport, you know, building rapport, which is trust right in the beginning, you know, and then the second phase would be like the discovery, learning about the person you're trying to sell a product to. What do they want to accomplish? What are their goals? What are they struggling with? Trying to really figure out like, how can I help them? And if the stars align, then you're going to figure out, how do I pitch the product? And then, of course, how do I close and how do I collect money? And then what if they say I need to think about it, or they procrastinate? How do you answer that objection and get them to sign up? And if they don't sign up, how do you follow up? Right. And so I go through every phase of that. Like, honestly, you could read that book and you don't even have to go through any of my programs if you're like one of those people, and that will teach you everything. But I wrote it for someone that, again, they're in a B2B sales role, but ultimately it's for people that want to transition into a more remote, high ticket sales role. Okay. There's a lot of sales jobs out there, like insurance sales. Okay. That's where I was at. I did door to door before insurance sales. And, I used to always joke with my coworkers. I'd be like, man, how cool would it be if every day we just woke up and we already had appointments on our calendar? We didn't have to go cold call for these. Like, we just already had them, and they were hot leads that wanted to talk to us because they just needed life insurance. We used to joke about that all the time. And then I discovered this industry of high ticket sales. That's exactly what it was. Yeah. Right. And it wasn't that people were just like screaming to buy the product, but because of the ad the company was running, people were inquiring, right, to buy a service, okay, that they already knew that they were interested in buying. Now it was just more of a, hey, they've done research on us. Now it's like they're interested. They're probably 60 to 80% there. It's my job to help them get across the finish line and actually pay us. Yeah. And man, oh man, if you're good at sales, that's a really fun conversation. And so that's really what I talk about in my book. I talk about that industry, how it changed my life. And then I teach the frameworks.
Let me pick your brain about like leading a sales team, because that's not easy. So there's a transition from even being an entrepreneur, right? Of like, you're in the trenches, you're doing the selling, you're wearing all the hats in the business. And now you need to hire a salesperson. You're running a team, right? Yeah. Right now with different stuff. Like, what's that look like? How to build a culture of high performance in sales teams? Let me ask you and pick your brain on how that looks like.
Yeah, great question. Number one thing is, how you show up for your team is how your team's going to show up. Okay. And so when you're leading anything, right, obviously when you're leading a team, like, we'll start with like meetings. Okay. This is one thing I think a lot of people forget about. It's like, hey, if you don't show up on time, do you think your team's going to think it's okay to not show up on time? Probably. Mm-hmm. Okay. So little nuances where it's like the things that you're not saying, because we're going to get into we can get into the details of like coaching people, but that's number one. Like, are you leading the way that you want your team to follow you? I think that's number one. Okay. Number two, do you have the systems in place to show someone that, hey, this has been done before they got here? Okay. If you're someone that's just starting a business and you're looking to hire your very first salesperson, the biggest mistake I see entrepreneurs make is they say, cool, you got sales experience, go figure it out. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that me or Nathan are gods at any point, but I'm sure like we're probably someone that'd be a needle in the haystack. We're like, we might be able to figure it out. Okay. But the average person, probably 98% of people are not going to be able to do that. Okay. Unless it's someone that's done a lot of this kind of stuff, built a business, whatever. And so you got to have systems in place. Okay. Whether it's like a really good script, you got to have calls that people can review of you closing sales, a system that they can say, wow, this is what he's teaching me. This is exactly what he's done. This is how he led to a result. Okay. You got to be able to have those types of systems in place, because salespeople need guidance until they get their confidence up, right? They need to get their first couple wins within the first week of working. If it's a one call close sale, all right. Because every day that goes by, they don't make a sales, their confidence just drops. So how do we get them the fastest win? Number one, you got to have systems, because in the beginning of the process, anyone new to sales, their enthusiasm, their excitement is really high in the beginning. And it's so funny because in every sales industry I've ever been in, the brand new person, usually if they memorize their script, okay, they always like made a sale. Like, it was like easy in the first week because they haven't taken all the beating of rejection yet. Sure. Right. They're just having fun, and they know like they're new. And so like, they don't even feel like they're selling at all. Then they go sell something. Right. But again, like, they had the systems in place. Okay. Now from that standpoint, once you get the systems, you start building those habits with your team. Okay. Then you can start to get to a place where they're a little bit on their own. They kind of understand the flow of a sales call, but you also need to be able to still review their calls. So you need to have a recording system in place, because you need to be giving them feedback tremendously. I mean, I would say at least every other day when they're new, because you got to tell them what they're doing good, what they're doing bad. Now, quick little tip when you're coaching someone in sales. I love that. I don't know who taught me this, but it's like the sandwich method. You never just like tear people apart, because like when someone's new, I can listen to a call and I could find 20 different things that they sucked at. And if I point out 20 different things that they sucked at, their confidence is going to drop tremendously, right? So I always find what's one good thing that they did. I always start with like, where's a good win? Get them excited, like I'm getting somewhere. Then I go into what's something they need to work on, and then I finish it with what's something great that I found in the call as well. So it's like a compliment sandwich. If you guys ever heard of that before, really effective way to give people just one thing to focus on. Because a lot of beginner sales managers will say, you need to work on all this stuff, and it creates this overwhelm. But like, you just got to figure out like, what's the one thing that they could do that can like just kind of move the needle a little bit. But you want to, like I said, you want to put something positive, go into constructive feedback, then finish with a positive. Call can be over. And you will see that help your sales team just like do well. I've seen people like sell in the next call just because of that, where it's like they got something very helpful. And then again, it's like their confidence wasn't ripped out of them. All right. And then the second thing is have a weekly meeting with every single person, okay, that you have going on. You cannot just let people go figure it out. I know we talked about this a minute ago, but you need to have a weekly meeting and expect at least once a month, especially in the beginning, a come to Jesus talk. All right. Because your new person's going to be overwhelmed at some point. And if it doesn't happen in month 1, it's going to happen in month 2 or 3. I promise you. And so that call they have to have this safety, like, call it your one-on-one with them, whatever. It's your weekly check-in. They can just talk about whatever they want. If they want to talk about work, great. If they want to talk about family, great. Just like build a relationship with them, but it's a great opportunity for you to mentor them. Right. But also when they come to you and you build that trust and they like say, man, I'm having a tough day. Like you got to be able to pull them out of that. And by having that come to Jesus talk, right. It's going to be hard. Right. And just like helping them get their confidence back. Right. And so, those are some of the little things that I would say if you're going to lead a team, you got to have the systems in place, number 1, but then number 2, you got to do the feedback loops consistently.
That's amazing, man. I love sales. It's so important. Leading is another one. Knowing how to do marketing and fulfillment. Those are other buckets that entrepreneurs need to know. Chad, it's super cool to hear about your sales expertise and how you're helping people do this. How can people follow you and connect with you further?
Yeah. So if you guys want to connect with me, you can look at me on Instagram, Chad Aleo. You can connect me on LinkedIn. That's a great spot. I do share a lot of content there as well. We got a TikTok channel. You can check us out at highticketsalesacademy.com, High Ticket Sales Academy TikTok handle. Let's see. We try to be on everything, right? Yeah. YouTube channel, all the things. So, but yeah, just shoot us a follow. Also I always recommend like, hey, if you want to learn some stuff, just grab my book. It's called The Book on High Ticket Sales, black cover, green letters. And so, but yeah, those would be the easiest ways. If you guys want to pick my brain and learn, and yeah, maybe check out some other podcasts as well.